All right, if you just joined us, it's still Enterprise Morning on Enterprise TV. Now to our main conversation. The federal government is set to inaugurate a 37-man tripartite committee on national minimum wage with a mandate to recommend a new national minimum wage for the country. The planned inauguration of the committee is sequel to the approval of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This was according to a statement on Sunday by Segun Imiosin for the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. The inauguration is scheduled to hold today, Tuesday, January 30, 2024 by 12 noon at the Council Chambers, Presidential Villa, State House in Abuja. With me to discuss on this issue in the studios is Barrister Jide Ologun. He is a lawyer and also a public affairs analyst. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Enterprise Morning today. Nice to have you today. So, sir, let's dig deep into this matter in question. And the question is, why do we necessarily need a 37-man member committee to do the most basic thing any government in the world can do with a snap of a finger?
I think it has to do with conditioning. You know, in industrial psychology, you talk about conditioning. We've been used to setting up committees and panels on issues that perhaps could have been handled by the ministry or agency or department of government, where we have human resources and other equipment to engage this assignment. And some have perceived this effort of government as a form of driving delay tactics to get done what can be done. Right now, even on your phone, you can do all the analysis you need, all the evaluation to come to a point of decision on this matter. Currently, we know that the minimum wage in Nigeria officially is 30,000 naira. And then, of course, the president palliatively gave a promise to raise it to, you need to add 35,000. And
that is 5,000 in addition.
Exactly. And then some states, for instance, Edo State added 10,000. Okay. I think in Kwara State also. But with this, the critical issue is that what is the current inflation rate?
As against whatever it is bringing to the table.
What is the foreign exchange profile? Right now, as of today, in the parallel market, a dollar sells for about 1,340 naira. So if you throw 30,000 naira minimum wage into that, what does it give us? And what we have in Section 16 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended is that the state shall provide reasonable living minimum wage. And at the macro level, can our economy even sustain that reasonable living minimum wage in view of the economic circumstances that we have found ourselves as a nation? Perhaps these are issues that the committee or panel or whatever will be making recommendations to the government. And again, talking about conditions, several recommendations have been made. You have the Rosaye report, you have different kinds of reports that have been presented to the government. But to what extent have we implemented these recommendations? So those are the issues. But and NLC on the other side, I think NLC is asking for about 200,000 naira minimum wage. Can the economy sustain it? And the concern of many stakeholders is that while these agitations are on, the National Assembly is earning bogusly, living flamboyantly, that the economic realities do not reflect in their own circle, while citizens are required to tighten their belts and make sacrifices. But by and large, we need an emergency intervention to the economic situation in this country, particularly in ensuring that the human resources are kept on board and productively so.
All right, so talking about seeking emergency intervention, and of course we've mentioned a lot of times the cost of governance. in our country, Nigeria. Do you think this is another jamboree committee, given the fact that all they are sitting down for is just an addition of 5,000 naira? And just like you said, if juxtaposed with the exchange rate, it doesn't cut on anything. So do you think this is another sort of jamboree coming together of people to dialogue on something that doesn't really, take home?
It may end up as a jamboree because by extension, let's even assume that the committee comes up with a report that make the reasonable minimum wage 100,000.
Okay.
Can the government pay? This issue of minimum wage is under the exclusive jurisdiction, of the federal government, and states are expected to log in. So we now start negotiating at state level. They will now have cadre because the minimum wage is for a particular group, and you must now scale it to the other scales we have. So can the state of the economy accommodate it? Do we have the resources? And that is when you may now find the government saying, okay, we have received the recommendations. But the reality is that this has not been reflected in the budget. So we start going around again and agitating. So those are issues of governance. So I think right now, the focus of the government is to reinvent the economy of this country, make it productive, block the leakages and the unnecessary blood flow, brought about by oil thieves and illegal miners, and secure the resources of the nation, generate commonwealth for common good, and then we may begin to move in the right direction. And like you brilliantly mentioned also, we need to look at the cost of government. I don't want to call it cost of governance. The cost of government, it is huge. I was reading a report that the total budget for education, if you throw it into the budget to maintain the members of the National Assembly, you'll be amazed. But they even still come to say that they're not earning enough. So it's all about the capacity to even implement whatever is recommended, and the acceptance by the Nigerian Labour Congress, the Trade Union Congress, and all those stakeholders also. So we have a huge assignment before us here, and that is why I express my concern that it may be a matter of presenting recommendations that may not be implemented because when you come to rendering professional services, the best you can do is make recommendations to your clients, and they are now at liberty to implement or not to implement. So those are issues. But basically, one of the wise steps that can be taken is to scale down on the cost of government, because it even fuels agitation from the citizens saying, okay, on our side, we are going through hardship, battling to cope with the inflation, but on the other side, it's economic joy all the way.
Exactly.
Resources are made available, comfort of life, and bogus budget and things like that, building befitting houses, official, different kinds of. So we need to connect emotionally and practically so that we can all pass through the tunnel of these economic realities and come out better on the other side.
All right. So looking at a recommendation that wouldn't worth anything at the end of the day, and just like you beautifully said, economic joy on one side and poverty on the other side. Do you think there's this remote intention of those in authority to continuously have it that way? Because it amazes lots of Nigerians to imagine why those in authority, would not want to bridge the gap every other time, such that the difference between the rich and the poor, comes closer as much as possible. But rather in Nigeria, you see it get widened every other time. So do you think it's the intention of those in authority to have it that way, so there would be continuous economic joy on the other side, like you did say?
Let me bring in the two-edged response. Primarily, it's a holistic issue. So the whole society should be blamed for that.
The whole society should be blamed for it.
Exactly, because our measurement of success reflects in this flamboyant living of leaders.
Okay.
So you find a man who is living in a corner, coping with the stress of the society, contesting for a political office, elected, and he moves away completely from that society. Maybe he had 2 vehicles, he sold one to campaign, unfortunately he won, and he returns to that community with about 4 exotic SUVs, and the community people will be hailing him, oh, he has arrived. You see, but again, on the side of leadership, is conditioning. So they also want to express their success. And how is this success expressed in Africa? Through these oppressive tendencies. Because if you look at Sweden, you look at Netherlands, you look at Switzerland, they have been able to bridge that gap between the rich and the poor. It will amaze you, in the United States of America, with about 50 states, there is power supply 24/7. All are made available. Fine, there are differentiations in levels of luxury, but the basic amenities you need to live, they are made available to everyone. And that is why you find people are trying to jump out of the country to seek greener pasture. And if the pasture is greener somewhere, it means some people take the pain to water the grass. But the reverse is the case here. For example, we've been talking about insecurity in the country. What is the population of the policemen that we have in the country? Reportedly, recently, you may find a senator moving around with about 8 mobile policemen. So if you have 109 senators, let's even assume they have five mobile policemen attached to them, officially or unofficially. So how many are left to shield the society to prevent crime and ensure law and order? So these are issues.
But the question,
spoken about,
yes,
360 House of Reps member, the executive, the political appointees, so we need to restructure that governance mindset, that an enabling environment is cheaper to maintain than a disabled environment, because all these security measures are at a huge cost. I mean, some of them must ride around in armored vehicle. I don't know how much an armored vehicle is. You see, the pump price of petroleum now, I was in Delta State recently, around there is about 660, 650, let's even put it at 600 flats. So you find a minister of the federal government of Nigeria with 3 SUVs that is fueled by governments. So you multiply that by about 48 ministers that we have, and you extend it to that of the National Assembly and other political appointees. So who will bear the burden of this? If Nigeria is so rich, it's no big deal, because the argument is that they must be equipped. I quite agree with that. So in the business environment, if your outflow outweighs your inflow, then you end up in liability, because asset is what brings inflow to you. Liability is what takes away from you, and that's where we are right now. And we've borrowed so much, and living on borrowed money with the kind of lifestyle we find in the community is not a wise thing at all. The Bible says that the borrower is a slave to the lender, and that the rich rule over the poor. You see, so that is where we found ourselves in the nation. So we must first come to a point where we reinvent a system that bridges the gap and begins to pay attention to the stakeholders in the society.
Well, the question is it about reinventing the system or looking at individual persona of those in authority? Let's take a very good example. Since the Fourth Republic, we've had, heads of states and presidents come from Olusegun Obasanjo to Yar'Adua, to Goodluck Jonathan, to Buhari, and now to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Amongst that list, you can mention just a few of them who have done awesomely well, So this is actually not a factor of the system. I guess it's a factor of the individual understanding what he is supposed to do. Now let us come back home. Most recently, the president, went what I would call globetrotting, to France, because of course he didn't tell us why he went there, and all this adds to the cost of governance in Nigeria. Nigeria, with the removal of the subsidy, Nigeria saves about 9 trillion naira every month. Now, if we equate all of this and talking about the minimum wage, do you think that is not good enough to have a good minimum wage for Nigeria? Or is it a quest of not having the right individual understanding the need to have a good minimum wage for Nigeria?
It is still about the system. You go to the UK, the system has prescribed how offices should be managed and conducted. And that is why you saw the parliamentarians stepping out one after the other to tell Boris Johnson that no, this is not what we promised the people. That is a systemic engagement. Mm-hmm. So it's also a disorder when you have a system that individuals can come and alter. And that is the point I'm making.
But don't you think the system in Africa is actually different from the system in other parts of the world?
That is what we are saying. The system,
an individual in Nigeria can come and alter the system.
That is why that system must be strengthened. I'll give you practical examples. Yeah. Recently, we started reading about how the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and scandal came up, this one and that. Now that story is fizzling away.
Definitely.
So it's likely that they have recovered some money and things like that. But will the culprits be prosecuted? That is systemic.
So, but who are the gatekeepers of the system? They are still the people at the
Section 5.
Yes.
Let me start from Section 4. Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says that the National Assembly shall make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good governance of Nigeria.
Okay.
That's a strong stakeholder there.
Good.
Section 5 gives the president the executive power as the presiding officer and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And he can work with the vice president, the Federal Executive Council. He appoints his ministers. The Senate will confirm. You see, then the judiciary is there. You go to Section 6. And so they are the custodians of governance. So if you now have a system where the checks and balances we studied in civic in secondary school, it's not there. I mean, I'm still asking this question. What happened in the last dispensation of the National Assembly that the president was constructing railway line to Nigerian Republic? The same Nigerian Republic now has shut their borders against Nigeria. And yet, we have infrastructural deficits in Nigeria. That is systemic.
So would you call that a systemic issue or an individual who decides that this is my
The system allows the individual. Sir, I don't want to mention any oil company, but I know their operations as an HR practitioner. They set their standard. You get to office also time, you clock in. Those processes are there. But if you relax on your regulations and processes and things like that, what happens? People behave as they like. These are issues. Let me bring the second example. Ekwere Madu was arrested in the UK for human trafficking, organ harvesting. The UK government already concluded their investigation before even making the arrest. And in the criminal justice dispensation, you have three vital pillars: thorough investigation, diligent prosecution, a committed judiciary system. That prosecution did not last it lasted for about 6 weeks. And they came to a conclusion that this person, some of these persons must be jailed. Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, a product of another system, highly influential, wrote a letter to the UK, and UK said no. We don't drive our system with sentiments. ECOWAS tried to lobby. They said no, that we have minimum tolerance for modern slavery. I can also refer us to the case of the former governor of Delta State, Ibori. When he was being prosecuted in the UK, people came from our system here to the court to tell the judge, oh, he built Olympic-sized stadium in Delta State. And the judge told them that it's not the business of the court to evaluate his performance in office, but to jail him for specific crime. That is systemic. It's systemic. Obama was 2-time president in the United States of America. Obama does not own a property in Washington, D.C. That is systemic. I've read reports of congressmen in the U.S. sleeping in their offices in Washington, D.C. because they could not afford to rent the expensive apartment. So, and if you want to look at the issue of system, go and study Singapore. Things are organized. Go and study the UAE. 6 sponsors of Boko Haram in Nigeria were arrested, prosecuted, and jailed in Dubai. How many have we jailed in Nigeria? So it's a systemic thing. We need a system that will be in place that you are coming to office, this corp is here, it's our vision that this corp should be here by year 2030. So you don't move this corp this way, you move in that direction. So, and until we come to that point, people will just come to office, dismantle structures and scatter everything, and you just keep dancing round and round and round. So the main focus now is to give good governance, a system that says this is what we want to achieve. You know, I was in Washington, D.C., I saw a billboard near the Capitol, and I was wondering that we are still building America. And I said, with these powerful structures that you have. And that's what we are saying. You know, so these are issues of our time. That is when we can tame crime. That is when we can create an environment that will attract foreign direct investment. Look at the revelations coming out from how central bank has been badly managed. It's appalling. We are talking of oil theft. So there's a cartel that we build pipelines into the, you know, I mean, it's wonderful. And again on system, I think we've changed the topic to system.
Yeah, today. Because I was actually wanted to
Nigeria came out to say we have identified about 400 sponsors of Boko Haram. It's not opposition that said it. Where are the sponsors? Who are they?
Yes, are they?
These are issues.
Yes.
And if there are no consequences, you switch to what we call reinforcement theory in industrial psychology, which means I can get away with it.
Yeah.
You know, and they will now escalate it. Okay, let me go into big time crime. So that when it blows, I can cover up, and you know, these are issues. And that's why we witnessed the Off Your Mic the transmission of prayer points to email addresses. And so we are in crisis.
Exactly.
We are in crisis.
Yes. So still, because the reason I feel that the system, of course, is very key and important is because, just like you did say, we don't have an efficient system in Nigeria that ensures that minimum wage is what it should be. In the UK, in France, they have built a system. Their system, of course, has built it such that people, when they feel they don't get what they deserve, they go on protest. And protest had significantly worked for them in France, in the UK. You see train workers, down tools, and before you know what happens, the government listens to them and try to do something. So do you think with 35,000 naira, if eventually it gets approved, which of course we know with exchange rate is not going anywhere in the life of an average Nigerian, do you think it's okay for us to resort to the protest that we see in other parts of the world that end up giving them results that they want?
Protests hardly give the expected results in Nigeria. In fact, the drivers of the protests sometimes are suspects.
When you mean suspects, what do you...
They go there protesting, they come back with photographs of handshakes and then drop the protest. So it's like the steam has been flattened. And let me say this, that brings us to the platform of corruption. Corruption has taken over. So some people have even left the shores of minimum wage, the people you are fighting for. And to justify my argument, just drive from Lagos to Benin City.
Okay.
And you will know what I'm saying. Some people are busy making money.
How do you mean?
I don't know. You go and witness it. So those ones are not even interested in wages. The oil thieves, they have those working with them within the system. Kidnappers have those working with them. Maybe some banks also help them to keep the money. So these are systemic viruses that have the tendency to destroy. And Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999, as amended, says that the state shall abolish corrupt practice and abuse of office. Look at the whole Accountant General of the Federation. Billions of naira. And systemically, he was turbaned again in the midst of all this. So, we have issues.
So how do we retrace our steps?
By retracing our steps. Link when you told his people that, guys, I won't be so democratic, but this is where we are going. And that's the power of vision. That we are going to the top. He came to West Africa. He came to Africa. Singapore left Malaysia in 1965.
Yes.
So the man came to seek for partnership. And when he sensed the systemic mindset around here, I think at that time, a minister then was even telling him how to, take advantage of state funds to set up his own private business. And the man said, no, I cannot partner with this mindset. And he left. And today, he has died, but he established a functional and productive system. That's what we are saying.
Now, do you think...
And let me give you another example.
Okay.
Sheikh Zayed, the founding father of the modern UAE, was embarking on agricultural project, and the Western world told them he could not work. He went to his people that it's our project, our land. Let's go ahead. And today, that region is doing extremely well. So let's now scale it down as we round up to the point of what leadership can do.
Exactly.
The system is subject to leadership. So rather than abuse the system, put it back on the right track. And that is the assignment for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu right now.
So which means the 37-man committee, if you were his legal advisor, do you think you would tell him that it doesn't make any sense, therefore he should do something
I won't
else?
say it doesn't make any sense.
So
if he's going to leverage on it and perform and deliver, why not? Why not? But if it's just give us recommendations and we continue as we continue, so be it.
But with what you know, sir, with what you know now, what do you think, if you were his legal advisor,
Yes.
what would be the best advice
I would
that
have
you would
told,
give him
I
in
would have,
respect to knowing
I would
that
have
things-
told Oga that leave committee alone.
Good.
Call the head of service.
Okay.
Call the Senate president, those who make the laws. We have room to amend the minimum wage and things like that. Call critical stakeholders, maybe about 7 of them. Sit down in a room, bring out your laptop or your phone. Google how is it done in Botswana. Botswana has sustained economic development for decades. Botswana runs surplus budget. Egypt has 100% access to electricity. So what, you don't need to travel. What are they doing? I studied the magic of Singapore. Pragmatic approach. You see, but committee, I don't know how much will be spent on that committee again now. So, but like I said, it's conditioning. And a wise man said, to learn the right thing, you need to unlearn the wrong thing. So that is the assignment for the president. His term is running, and everything he does will be documented under his name. I mean, in this case of Nigeria Republic, Mali, and Burkina Faso, honestly, my mind went back to the huge investment of Nigerian resources on railway line to Maradi, doing refinery. At a point I read NNPC wanted to construct fuel stations in the Nigeria Republic to curb smuggling, And so what have we achieved? What is in it for Nigeria? I mean, American government, we only get involved in a matter to the extent to which their citizens will benefit. And that is good. And let me say this also, the insecurity in the country, I'm happy now that we appear to have woken up. And I want to recommend, I'm not supporting any war, but I have quietly been studying responses. Look at the response of Israel to Hamas. That, okay, let's go full-fledged. So these bandits and kidnappers, you have to go full-fledged. And if you identify their sponsors, don't spare them. Bring them to justice. If not, they will continue to sabotage the effort of the government. So those are the key issues. So it's the system is subject to leadership.
Exactly.
John Magufuli, late president of Tanzania, redirected the system. He brought in prudence, and then now that system is working for them, and I hope the new leader keeps it up. So those are Nigeria is one of the most blessed countries in the world, and we must enjoy the good of this land.
Exactly.
And then we wish our president and commander-in-chief, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the best in office with his team. He's the presiding officer now. He's a pilot, so God will strengthen him with wisdom.
We hope it will land well.
Exactly, and we pray that the glory of Nigeria shall be restored. But there are steps we must take. God has blessed this nation exceedingly.
You've said it all. You've said it all. And just like Barrister did say, the system is subject to leadership. What Nigerians need the most is prudence in management of our resources. God has blessed us so very well that all we need are good leaders who would make good use of the resources we have for the benefit of Nigerians in entirety. I'd love to say thank you so very much, Barrister Jide Ologu, for being part of our show. I really did enjoy our discussion today. Thank you so very much.
Nigeria.
All right. So for you watching, we'd love to say thank you so very much also for being part of our show today. But please do well to visit our websites at www.enterprisetvnews.com and also follow, like, and comment on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. I am Henry Igwe. I'll see you tomorrow for yet another awesome time. Cheers.